So we are live and welcome. Now we're recording. So we are live. Welcome to The Way to Wow, People Making Money. I'm Kevin Bemmel. I'm your host. And this week, I'm going to be talking about about the strategies and tactics to market yourself to get the kind of high-paying job that you'll love or to start that lucrative business. Again, as I've talked about before, these days it's very much the same thing, and it just depends on whether you're going to have one client, which is the company you work for, or you're going to have lots of clients, which are the clients you have as a business owner. I just want to review last week. My guest was David Notowitz. David talked about his professional journey starting out in the video business, in TV news, it was a business news network. The name of it is escaping me right now, and how eventually he became one of the top forensic video experts literally in the world, certainly in the United States. We distilled some great lessons from that, and I invite you to go to our YouTube channel, The Way to Wow Show on YouTube, and you can view that episode from last week as well as past episodes. So this week, we're going to talk about how to market yourself. And this is a follow-on session to a couple that I've done before. One was talking about your unique value proposition. We're going to review that a little bit today because that's going to be the basis for your marketing effort. And then I talked about the 5 steps, the only 5 steps you need to take to get a high-paying job or start a lucrative business. Talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And this is kind of step number 3 or 4. And it's really, when it comes down to it, it's really the key step. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oops, wrong button. Okay. And I don't know why that's there. It goes. Okay. So here we go. We're going to get right into this. And these are, like I said, this is how you're going to market yourself. And let's see, what am I doing here? Oh, okay, there we go. And I lost my thing. Okay, let's try this. There we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is when you want to have a high-paying job, start a lucrative business, it really, I think, requires a mindset shift. And this is something that I had to deal with now quite some time ago when I started my first business back in 1986, I believe it was. So unlike other places where we may work, for example, the military, where no matter how hard we work and how much value we create, we're going to get paid the same thing. There's no such thing as merit pay or anything like that. In the competitive job market and in the business world, wealth comes from value delivered. So I think this is a maxim that all of us should adopt. We're talking about it here in the context of finances, but indeed, this is also true in a lot of other areas of our lives. So I'm going to digress for just a minute and talk about relationships. So whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a parent-child relationship, wealth, in this case, it would be the closeness and supportiveness of the relationship is going to come from the value delivered. So I suspect most of us, if not all of us, have had a situation where we were friends with someone and we felt like we were always giving and got nothing back. So that mutual exchange of value is what will cause two people to sustain that friendship. And if there is not a mutual exchange of value, eventually I think friends will drift away and there won't be any kind of relationship there anymore. And the same is true for parents and children. The same is true of spouses. So this formula of wealth comes from value delivered, if we think wealth just as being something beyond money, something that we desire for the betterment of our lives, so we can see that it applies much more broadly. But in the case of a job or a business, so wealth, financial wealth, is going to come from the value that you deliver. And the more value you can give your clients, the more likely they are to do business with you again, to refer you to other people. The more value you can deliver for the company you work for, the greater the opportunity that you will advance in the company, and or be given more challenging projects on which to work. And all of that will allow you to continue to move up and up and up into into higher paying positions, positions maybe where you'll get other things besides salary, whether it's stock options, whether it's additional benefits. All of those things are going to come because the people in the company see that you deliver value. Now, value too needs to be looked at broadly. So we think of value as, getting our job done. And yes, of course, that's absolutely important. But value also comes in other areas in the company. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with playing corporate politics. And for a lot of people, that's kind of the worst part of working for a large organization. But the ability to deal with politics, which after all is really just a subset of how people relate, the better we can do that, the more valuable we are to the organization. And I'm going to quickly add, I don't mean politics in the sense of stabbing other people in the back and that kind of egregiously awful behavior. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is the ability to work well with other people, to help them advance, to get buy-in to a project that's important to the company. All of these are critically important to the success of an organization. In fact, whether it's a for-profit organization or a nonprofit makes no difference. So these sort of soft skills, if you will, emotional intelligence, it's sometimes called, all of these are part of delivering value. And in many ways, these soft skills are more valuable in terms of where you can derive wealth from than the hard skills. We can teach people how to code software, for example. It's much harder to learn how to deal with colleagues effectively and keep a team moving in a positive, productive direction. Okay, so again, I encourage you to adopt this mindset. Wealth comes from value delivered. Broadly defined wealth, broadly defined value. Okay. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the only 5 steps to getting a high paying job or starting a lucrative business or having a lucrative business. These are those. I'm not going to go through them other than to say, here they are. If you want to know more about these, please go to our YouTube channel and you can see the session that I did on the 5 steps. Okay. So I do want to review, though, the idea of unique value proposition. I did a whole show on this as well. The reason I want to review this is because, as I mentioned before, this is the crux of your marketing. So when I talk about marketing yourself, this isn't a sort of rah, I'm great, hire me, or I'm great, patronize my business. That's all good and well, but that's not doing anything for people. That's not adding any value to their lives, to solving the problems that they have, or anything like that. What will help people is our skills, our knowledge and experience and training, our interest in that. If we're interested in something, we have a much deeper commitment to working on it. And then market demand, right? People actually will pay us for the skills that undergird the interest that we have, okay? And those 3 features have to be present in order for you to get either a high-paying job or have a lucrative business. If you have skills and interests, but there's no market demand, you have a really cool hobby. That's what you got. Okay. I've used the example before, me and chocolate. Okay. If you have skills and market demand, but you're not interested in what you're doing, you can have a lucrative job, but it's going to be very frustrating. Right? That's where, frankly, I find a lot of lawyers find themselves is the law pays very well often, especially if you've been in it for a while and developed a good practice, or you're working for a large firm and you've advanced through the hierarchy, even up to partner or whatever. So, but they're very frustrated because the work it doesn't, in the end, doesn't really interest them. Okay. So in that case, you've got a job that probably is not very enjoyable. And if you have interest and market demand, but no skills, you have no ability to get that job, right? So you'll need the knowledge and the experience and the training to be able to get that job or start a business in that arena. So these three factors, skills, interest, and market demand, have to be present. And you're going to look to these things as the foundation of the effort to market yourself. Okay, so let's look I'm going to kind of go through this pretty quickly because like I said, I did a whole show on this, but your skills assessment. So as you look at your skills, one of the things you want to focus on is scarcity and urgency. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the more scarce a skill, the more lucrative it is, the more money you can make from it. Okay. So as you might imagine, one of the reasons why it's hard to get a job eating chocolate is because it's a very easy skill to have. Even to be able to taste all the unique or all the not unique, but all of the subtle flavors and such that come from different cacao. But there's lots of people who can do that, right? And so there's not a whole lot of scarcity for that particular skill, or for that matter, to have a lot of experience in tasting chocolate. And there's also not a whole lot of urgency. Okay, so rarely, I mean, I've never had someone come up to me and say, I need to know what this chocolate tastes like right now, right? So I'm going to pay you a premium to tell me what this tastes like right this second. Doesn't happen, right? On the other hand, think about a brain surgeon. Okay, how many people can successfully do brain surgery? Not a lot. And when somebody needs brain surgery, typically it's pretty urgent, right? As in, if they don't get it, there can be a good chance that they're going to die, unfortunately, right? So in between those two extremes, tasting chocolate, no scarcity, no urgency, and brain surgery, great scarcity, great urgency, is a range. And most of us fall somewhere in the middle of that range in terms of our experience, our training, and our knowledge. So as you go through a skills assessment, and you can see the steps here, I'm not going to go through the steps, but as you go through your skills assessment, one of the things you want to look for is, what skills do I have that distinguish me from all the other people out there looking for a job? And what skills when people need them, they need them badly. Okay, so that's when you do your skills assessment, that's what you want to focus on. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this. If you, by the way, if you want a copy of these slides, you can contact me through the show's website, thewaytowowshow.com, and I'll be happy to send you a copy of these slides and answer any questions that you have, by the way. Okay, so interest. So again, when we talk about something that you're interested in, I mean, it can be just a sort of a general interest, but the more intense your interest is, the more likely it is that you'll really stick with pursuing that, even when it's difficult. Okay. And that really is what makes the difference. So most of us have lots of different interests. Some of them are more passionate than others. So, and I hesitate to use the word, a passionate interest, because some of us don't really have a passionate interest that's all consuming, what Earl Nightingale used to call river people, where they get into this flow of this particular interest, and time basically ceases to have any meaning. Many of us, have a real challenge getting into flow. And by the way, in the second season of the show, I talk about Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book, Flow, and what that's all about. So if you're interested in understanding this concept of flow, I invite you to look at the show from season 2. To go back to interest, it doesn't have to be that kind of all-consuming interest, but I would encourage you to look for things that you find yourself continually curious about. Okay, what are the kind of things that you think about when your mind is just kind of on going on autopilot, right? What is that about? So, like for me, I can tell you, of late especially, I've thought more and more about how all these somewhat new technologies, things like blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, fintech, how are these things going to change our world? How are they going to make life different for us? And for the average person like you and me, right? I mean, we're not going to be some mega wealthy billionaire. What we're going to be is an average person, and that's a good thing, I think. So how are these things going to eventually? They will. Okay, somewhere or another. Either they'll turn out to be the kind of evolutionary, revolutionary technologies that really change how the world works, like the internet. In which case, how we interact with other people, how we handle financial transactions, they'll all change. Or they'll turn out to be a complete bust. And there'll probably be a lot of disruption in financial markets as people who have invested, tens of billions or more, hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars in these things, realize that those investments are gone. And so now, what are they going to do? Right. So what do you find interesting? Do you find real estate interesting? Okay. And by the way, your interest doesn't have to be unique. Okay. That's not the point here. The point of the interest is what really, turns you on, to use the language of the 60s. Yes, I was alive in the 60s. I was a child though. What really kind of gets you wanting to ask questions? Seek out people who can teach you more about it. Okay. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's French literature. Maybe it's food in general, right? And if you've got kind of a niche interest that maybe doesn't appear to be broad enough to really, be something for a job. So what could you broaden that interest to that would give you the basis for starting a business or for finding that high paying job? Okay, so that's what I want to say about interest. There are different approaches for finding them out. Okay. And then the last thing would be, is there market demand for it? And the best way of finding if there's market demand for it is to look around. If there are jobs available doing the things that you have in mind, then there's market demand. If there's other businesses in the sector, then there's market demand. If there's no one doing it or no one working at it, that's a pretty good sign that there's no market demand for it. Now we're tempted to think, oh, well, if nobody's doing it, I've got the great idea of all time. No one's doing it. I can get in on the bottom floor. Well, maybe, but oftentimes the fact that nobody at all is doing it is not a good sign that there's market demand for the particular idea or the particular job that you have in mind. So, okay, so that's your unique value proposition. So now let's get to the core of this, which is how to market yourself. Okay, so we're gonna talk about 3 things to do. 1, Google yourself, and we'll talk about why that's important. 2, create a LinkedIn profile and then get involved in networking. Okay, now don't sign out. Okay, I'm going to talk very specifically about what networking is and how to do it in a way that I think you will find both fits your personality and is not at all painful, or is maybe just this much painful. Okay, and then I will talk about resumes as well. All right, so first of all, let's talk about Googling yourself. It's just what it sounds like. Search your name. Okay, and if you have a common name like John Smith, you may not find yourself uniquely. Okay, so you'll be kind of lost in the noise of all the other John Smiths out there. But if you have a middle name, make sure you include your middle name. Okay, and see what comes up. What you're doing is you're looking for things first and foremost that reflect negatively on you. Okay, these days, almost every employer, before they hire you, is going to Google your name. Either the hiring manager is going to do it, or someone in personnel is going to do it, or the business owner is going to do it. So especially for any kind of high-paying job, they're going to do that because they want to know who you are. And finding out what is out there about you on social media will tell them. As well as other places besides social media. So once you've Googled your name, review all your social media. Okay, and these are the kind of things you're looking for. So identifying negative information. Inappropriate pictures. What are inappropriate pictures? Well, that's somewhat in the eye of the beholder, of course. But if you're running around crazy naked, I mean, maybe there's some employers who won't be bothered by that, but a lot will. Okay, if you're doing obviously dangerous things, and I don't mean skydiving or parasailing. I mean obvious dangerous things like running across railroad tracks as a train is coming, on a dare from a friend. Those are the kinds of things that employers don't like. Inappropriate pictures also can mean things you may have done in the past that just aren't acceptable societally these days. And there have been some notable, examples of that where people, especially in elective office, pictures have surfaced of them at parties, with doing things that may have been okay back, 30, 40, 50 or more years ago, but nowadays, you just wouldn't do, whether it's, ugly things like, dressing in blackface or those kinds of things. Those are not acceptable by today's standards. And so, you want to know if that kind of information is out there about you, and to the extent possible, you want to get rid of it. Just take it down. Okay. Now, if it's on your own social media, you can delete those posts or delete those pictures or whatever. If it's on other websites or other people's social media, hopefully they're your friends. And, get in touch with them and say, hey, I'd like you to take down those pictures from that, wild trip to Cancun 20 years ago when we were, in our late teens and we're, doing things that, we wouldn't do today or whatever it is. Okay. Other kinds of negative information, drinking or drug usage. Especially anything that would tend to seem like you're, glorifying it. A lot of employers don't want to see that. Now, I think we're past the time where, if someone has a picture of them with a drink in their hand, they can no longer be elected, president of the United States, which that used to be a thing. But there's, of course, a difference between responsible use of alcohol, or for that matter, even marijuana these days, and irresponsible use. So anything that would appear to be an irresponsible use of those kinds of things, again, I think you want to get rid of it. Bad mouthing a former employer. Look, you may have been absolutely wrongly treated by a former employer. For sure it happens, of course it does. And you may have been absolutely justifiably angry about it. Wouldn't dispute that for a minute. Okay. Unfortunately, sometimes people get mad at their former employers and it's not necessarily particularly justified. And so someone looking at your information, they won't know whether you're justified or not in bad mouthing this employer, or what you're saying this employer did, they actually did. I'm sure you can appreciate some people just like to blow off steam, right? So I would highly recommend if there's any, especially video, even pictures of you bad mouthing a former employer, I would recommend you take them down. Okay. Now, that doesn't say anything about whether you were justified in posting them in the first point. It may have been very cathartic. Hopefully it helped you work through, that particular time in your life. But for moving forward, I would encourage you to consider getting rid of those, and think about it for a moment from the employer's standpoint. Do they want to hire someone who, if for some reason things don't work out, even if it's not either the person's fault or the employer's fault, do they want to risk getting lambasted in social media because it didn't work out? And a lot of employers don't want to take that risk. So you're reducing the pool of potential employers. And or the same would be true of something you might say about a former client. Even worse, frankly. Who wants to hire a company who, if things don't work out, that company is going to start talking negatively about the client? You're really putting putting yourself in a hole there. So, I would encourage you to rethink those kind of posts. And somewhat tied to that could be negative reviews, although that's not nearly as crucial. I mean, if you got bad service at a restaurant, as long as the review was reasonable and just, as opposed to just sort of an ad hominem attack on the restaurant owner or the waiter, waitress, whatever, you're probably okay there. But you may want to take a look at those too, especially if you have a lot of them. Okay. Discriminatory comments. I mean, hopefully in this day and age, very little needs to be said about this, other than if you've made discriminatory comments online, take them down. Now, hopefully you regret having made them. I would hope. That's between you and your conscience, I suppose. But it is not appropriate. And employers will decline to hire you, and clients will decline to patronize your company if they see discriminatory comments, coming from you. And it doesn't even have to be from their group. Okay. If I were patronizing a business and I found out they were making discriminatory comments about any group, it doesn't have to be Jews, any group, I'm not going to patronize that business, and I'm not going to hire that person, because that person, if I hire them, they're going to reflect on my company, and I don't, that's wrong. It's wrong to discriminate, right? So most companies are, I think, hopefully all companies are going to look at it that way. Okay, politics. This is a difficult one, right? Especially in these times, and I don't talk about politics very much, and so nothing I say here is meant to play to one side of the aisle or the other. I'm not. People should live and be well with respect to their political views, as far as I'm concerned. Those are personal choices we make, hopefully based on our values. Having said that, a lot of employers don't want politics brought into the workplace these days. It can be very divisive. It can really hamper meeting the mission of the particular company. It can make relations between employees very, very difficult. And so, they would just rather not have that going on. Okay. And even for someone who's deeply committed to their political views, hopefully you can appreciate that, there's an appropriate time to talk about those. And there are times when it's just not appropriate. And I would say as well, if you feel so strongly that you should be able to express your political views wherever and whenever you want, then I would talk about that, ask about that if you're in a meeting to discuss a job. Okay, because why do you want to put yourself in a place where the culture of the company is such that talking about politics is frowned upon or discouraged or not allowed, or however the company deals with it. Okay. And as well, if you're that passionate about politics, then sort of going back to your unique value proposition, maybe you want to work for an organization that concurs with your political viewpoint and actually find a lucrative position pursuing your political interests. Okay. So to the extent that you have political posts on your social media, I would take a careful look at it, and I would encourage you to consider taking down anything that is vulgar, personally attacking individuals. It's one thing to advocate for a particular cause, perhaps, or whatever it is. But I think any of the sort of polarizing subjects that are in the political discourse these days, you may want to consider taking those posts down, because it could, from an employer standpoint, show that you're someone who maybe is potentially difficult to get along with. Okay. Now, again, this is just my recommendation. I'm not telling you what to do. We all have to act in accordance with our consciences. And so I give you this advice for your consideration, and make of it what you will. Okay. Last thing, bad communication skills. So, most employers need us to be able to communicate clearly, especially if we're in a higher paying job where we probably are supervising or managing other people, we're working together in teams. Good, solid, clear communication is very important. So a little bit earlier this morning, I was talking to someone who's going to be a future guest on the show, a fantastic woman by the name of Jennifer Chang. I'm going to just sort of give you a heads up. She'll be on the show in a couple of weeks. I think you will really enjoy hearing her perspective and her professional journey. And Jennifer was mentioning that in the world that she works in, which is kind of cryptocurrencies and more specifically NFTs, especially in the art world, there's a whole language that people are using, and it's almost impenetrable sometimes. As much as she's involved, there are times she doesn't really understand what people are talking about. She has to sort of parse through it and figure it out. So that kind of exclusionary language, I think, is counterproductive if we're looking to advance ourselves professionally. Because one of the most important skills, as I mentioned a little while ago, are these soft skills. And key soft skills is being able to communicate with a lot of other people well. Right? So if we're using exclusionary language, and I don't mean just necessarily politically exclusionary language, of course we don't want to use that, but even just language that kind of makes us part of the in-group within this industry versus, all the other people who are kind of the out group or whatever, not productive. Now, hopefully it goes without saying that, we need to be able to communicate, reasonably well in English, since that's the language spoken here. We need to be able to spell reasonably well. There's nothing that'll turn off an employer faster than a lot of misspellings, either on our resume or probably more relevantly, in our LinkedIn profile. So these kind of basic skills, basic communication skills, need to be present if we want to find that high-paying job or start a lucrative business or have a lucrative business. So to the extent that there are things in your social media or other places that demonstrate poor communication skills, I would highly encourage you to remove those. In this case, it may be more likely that than other things that they're on some other website. So, contact the people who or the businesses that own those websites and ask them if you can take down whatever is there, or if they will take down, not you take down, if they will take down whatever is there, or if they'll allow you to revise it so that you're demonstrating good communication skills. That would probably be even better, right, than just having the stuff taken down. But you want to identify all of this negative information, get rid of what you can, and then explain the rest. Okay, so one of the questions that comes up with some regularity is, well, what if I have a criminal conviction on my record? Okay, people out there, whether it's a DUI or something that someone did when they were young and whatever, and now it's part of their permanent record. Well, there are ways to get criminal convictions expunged after a certain amount of time. I can't speak for every single state. I know here in California, there is a process for getting criminal convictions expunged, and I would encourage you to check that out, especially if there's been enough time that's passed that you're eligible to do that. So that would be the first step. And if you can get it expunged, terrific. Yep. So now it's not on your record anymore, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay. If you can't get it expunged, then I think you need to come up with a reasonable explanation. Why did this happen? Right? I'll give you an example. Let's say it was you have a drunk driving conviction on your record. Well, what led to it? So I had a sailor back when I was with one of the units I served as a chaplain, and he got a DUI. And I met with him after it happened. He was very upset. I said, "Hey, shipmate, what happened?" He said, "I came home and my wife was waiting for me. And she told me that she wanted a divorce after, I believe it was more than 20 years of marriage. And she had all her bags packed and she said, 'I want a divorce.' And she picked up her bags and she walked out of the house. And I couldn't stay in the house alone. I went out and I had a couple of drinks, and I didn't realize I'd had too much to drink, and I was driving home and I got stopped, and there it was." All right. He did something wrong. Okay. He did something very dangerous, something that could have hurt, even killed another person. I don't think, certainly he would not agree with that, or he would not disagree with that. I mean, he would agree that that's what he did. And yet, I think if we consider the circumstances, all right, this isn't someone who's, an alcoholic. This isn't someone who goes out and parties all the time and regularly does this, but only got caught one time or something like that. Okay. I mean, it's a reasonable explanation. Now, by the way, there are some employers who, despite a reasonable explanation, will exclude someone like my shipmate, as a possible employee. I still say that you're better off dealing with these things up front rather than having the employer discover it and feel like maybe you were trying to hide something. Okay, and that's the key thing. So however you put your explanation together, I would encourage you to, one, take responsibility for what happened. Now, maybe it was a wrongful bust. Okay, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, look, we all know life is not fair. It is just not fair, right? And I think, as part of your explanation, you say, here's the honest situation. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I actually didn't do what I was convicted of, but you know what? Life isn't fair. And so I have to deal with the fact that this is on my record, at least until I can get it expunged. Okay, well, that's pretty credible. Okay. you're saying, I believe I was wrongly convicted, but I'm a grown up, and I realize that sometimes these things happen, and so there it is. Again, there may be employers who would hear that and say, you're not the right employee for me. Oh, I would argue that that employer is probably being short-sighted, especially in a job market like today, where almost every business, it seems like, is looking for people. So, you know, you again figure it out. On this one, this can be a little bit delicate. If this is something you'd like some help with, let me know. Again, go to the website, thewaytowowshow.com, get in touch with me. Happy to help you with that. Okay. Now, let's talk about your LinkedIn profile. And I realized, wow, the time is really zooming here. So your LinkedIn profile is these days much more important than your resume. Okay. So when you think about putting it together, really look at it from the standpoint of, this is the story of why someone should hire you, either as an employee or as a business owner. Okay. So you want to start out with a strong headline that really points out the benefit of hiring you, of having you delivering value to that particular firm or to those clients as a business owner. Okay, that's what you want to look at. How are you going to deliver that value? What is it you're going to give them? Okay, a headline that says, looking for a job in the tech industry, worthless. I'm sorry to say, and you'll see a lot of them on LinkedIn. Who cares? Okay. On the other hand, software developer with 10 years experience, okay, or creative solutions through 10 years of software development experience. Okay, now the person reading that headline is like, and I need someone who can solve problems with software development. Okay, I'm going to read on. So you want a strong headline that will catch people's interest and get them to read the next part, which is your summary. Now, the summary should be employer focused. Again, what can you do for the employer? What can you do for prospective customers? How can you add value to their lives, to their organization, etc.? Okay, so you're going to want to go in, you're going to want to explain the headline in greater depth. Now, you don't want to make it really, really long. 2 or 3 sentences, complete sentences, by the way, at the most, or some bullet points. Okay, however you want to do it, whichever way you're more comfortable. Okay, but again, you're telling the story of why hire you. So it's got to be all focused on the value you can deliver. The more you can quantify, the better, right? So, increased sales at last organization by 32% over 2 years. Wow, fantastic. Okay. Now, I would encourage you to also have some video clips or articles there that people can view or download to take a look at that go into greater depth. The video clips shouldn't be particularly long, 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes. That's probably about all people will watch. An article, maybe, sometimes people will read long articles, but, in general, shorter things are probably going to be better, or at least make sure if it's a long article that you have some sort of executive summary at the beginning so people can see what it's about. The video clips and the articles are designed to demonstrate your expertise in a more profound way. Okay, so think of it as strong headline is super short, summary, reasonably short, video clips, articles going more into depth. Okay, then number 2, what is your target job? What is it you're looking to do? This is going to come directly from your unique value proposition. Okay, and by the way, you could substitute the word job for business, of course. We've talked all along about how it's essentially the same thing today. So what is it what industry you're targeting? What position in the industry, or what service are you looking to deliver? Or what product are you looking to deliver? That you want to describe your target. Okay. Next, emphasize your accomplishments. So as you go through things like your work experience, it's, say briefly what you did, focus on what you accomplished. How did you help the organization? How did you help them meet their mission? Or how does your business help clients meet their mission or better their lives or solve problems or whatever it is you do for them? How does your how does your product enhance their life, make their life easier, more fun, able to do, able to be more productive, whatever that is. Okay. That's what you want to focus on in terms of your, work experience. Okay. What improvements did you create for a company you work for or in people's lives if you're talking about your business? And do your best to quantify that. Okay. So in the case of a business, so let's say that you have, a tax preparation business. Okay. And let's say that maybe you've been doing it for about 3 years now. So over the 3 years, let's say that your average, I've lost all of a sudden, refund, your average tax refund is 10 times your tax preparation fee. Wow, that's pretty cool because I can save myself the hassle of having to do my taxes, and it's only going to cost me 1/10 of what the government's going to give me back. That might be, for a lot of people, that's a pretty good trade-off, right? So look at it that way. Okay. Try to quantify your accomplishments so people can understand what you can really do for them. Again, either as an employer or as a client to your business. Okay. And finally, look to get endorsements from other people. Obviously, as well known as possible. If you can get an endorsement from Elon Musk, get it, right? We may not be able to be him, but his endorsement would certainly be valuable in the market today, I would think. In any event, what you want is endorsements that talk about the benefits you deliver. That's really the key. Okay, so it's all good and well, you're the greatest, this or that or the other thing, but really, what benefit did the person who's writing the what benefit did the person who's writing the endorsement get from you in terms of the work that you did? Whether it's a current employer, former employer, whether it's customer, past clients and customers, whatever it is, what did they get? What was the benefit they got from you doing work for them? Because that's what will then tell other people why they want to work with you or why they want to hire you, et cetera, et cetera. Now, by the way, for those of you who get written evaluations, whether it's in the military or maybe in large companies, a lot of them do written evaluations. So you can always pull out excerpts from those written evals and put them in as endorsements. Okay. Now, by the way, you may want to check with the person who wrote the evaluation, just to make sure that you don't get any blowback. But I'm not sure they're depends on how the company looks at them. To the best of my knowledge, the military is not going to object. If you take an excerpt out of your email, your fitness report, or what, the different services have different names for the different documents they use to evaluate the job that personnel are doing. And it may be, asking forgiveness is better than asking for permission. You may want to take that tack. That might be the right way to go. But in any event, that's what I would, that's another place where you can get endorsements. If maybe you're a little bit shy about asking people, or you're kind of new getting going, don't have any other people to ask for them. So look to those as well. Okay. All right. So that's your LinkedIn profile. Now let's talk about networking. Now, I just realized this presentation was written specifically for veterans. Military veterans, that is. I'm going to expand this so that anybody can do it, because really anybody can use this networking technique. And LinkedIn is a terrific place to network because you can focus your search so well. So, for example, if you were in the military, right, you can go and search for people who are now in whatever industry it is you want to get into, who used to be in your branch of the service. Okay, you can find out who those people are, and then you can contact them. Okay, by the way, you can do the same thing for people who went to the same college or university that you went to. You can do it for people who used to work at the company you worked at, or the nonprofit that you worked at. Okay, I think you can even do it for people who have similar interests to you. So use the search function to find people with whom you have an affinity. Okay, that's what all these things are. Having served in the military, having served in the Peace Corps, having gone to the same college or university, or even the same high school, okay, or having a similar interest. Okay, find those people. Okay, and then request to connect to them. Now, don't just hit the connect button. Write a short blurb as to why you're reaching out to them. Now, by the way, if you say you're reaching out to them because you're looking for a job, you're not going to get very many connections, because most people are going to say, I can't give this person a job. I'm not going to bother. The reason you want to connect, hopefully, is to develop relationships with people who have similar interests and professional goals, to learn from them. Okay, so whenever I send one of these connecting messages through LinkedIn, that's what I emphasize. I'm looking to connect with you because we have similar mutual interests, and I think we can benefit each other through knowledge and potentially contacts. Okay, now in my experience, within the military, about 90% of the people will accept the contact request. Outside the military, it's lower than that, maybe between 65 and 75%, but it's still pretty high. Okay, and you know, university, I think it's more like the military. That varies from university to university. Now, I went to USC, so it's pretty high. The Trojans are a pretty close-knit bunch. Other universities, maybe it's the alumni are not so tight, so that'll vary a little bit. But what you want to do is work on really honing that message. So if you send out 5 messages to connect to people and you don't get any responses back, change your message and keep changing your message until you get something that people respond to. And the great thing about LinkedIn is there's always more people for you to connect with. Okay, and it's not like going into a big room where there's lots of people and they're milling around and they're all just trying to get someone to pay them money or be their client or customer or whatever. I'm not a big fan of those kind of networking events, frankly. What I want to do is I'm looking for people to network with that I can establish a relationship where we can help each other out. We can build our professional lives together and hopefully even become friends and help each other outside of the professional arena if necessary. Okay. Now, assuming that they've accept your request to connect, so then ask them if they'd be open to a phone conversation, or if they're in the same live in the same area that you do, maybe they will meet for a coffee. A face-to-face meeting is always the best because it gives you the opportunity to create the greatest rapport. Okay, and look, a lot of people, a lot more people are not going to agree to talk or meet with you, not because they don't like you or anything like that, is that they don't want to take the time, or they don't have the time, or whatever. They're afraid to meet a stranger. Okay, so look, it's part of this is it's just a process of contacting a lot of people to get the ones that will meet with you or speak with you. And by the way, for the ones who don't, there's probably some validity to the idea that, hey, they don't want to connect with you, so yeah, that probably means they're not open to a relationship anyway. And so there's a self-selection that goes on there. Have, in preparation for that telephone conversation, that meeting, have 3 questions about your industry or about problems that people have that you think you can solve, those kinds of things. Open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. Okay. You don't want to have 3 questions of yes, no, yes. All right, well, that was 5 minutes. And now what do you do for the next 25 minutes? No. You want to ask them questions that will get them talking about their experience, their background, their perspective. That's what's useful. That's what you're trying to accomplish. If there's time for you to share your background, your perspective, fine, they'll ask if they want to know. But the real key here is for you to show that you deliver value by giving them a forum in which they can teach you. And a lot of people will find that gratifying. They want to share, they want to give, and so you're giving them that opportunity. Okay? After that initial meeting, you're going to assess the relationship potential. First of all, do you like the person? If you don't like the person, maybe that's not a relationship to pursue. I'm not talking about in an interpersonal way. I'm talking in a professional sense. Okay? One of the best pieces of business advice I got after I got off active duty with the Navy was from a man who'd been in business for a long, long time. And he said, the second time around for you, Kevin, I recommend you only do business with people you like and trust. And that's an excellent piece of advice. It is. So do you like the person? Do you have similar values? Okay. Now, by the way, when I say values, I don't mean politics. Okay. I have similar values to people with whom we have great political differences. Okay. That's not so relevant, although it may be. It just depends. Okay. But what I want is to make sure is my core values that I share that with other people that I'm going to develop relationships with. The reason is because if I have to solve a problem with that person, it's much easier to do so if we share values. If we don't share values, it can be difficult to impossible to work out relationship problems. Okay? And then, is there future prospects professionally? Notice I make that third. Okay? Now, a lot of people put that number 1. I don't. Because just because there's future prospect for business with someone doesn't mean it'll be realized, especially if you don't like the person and you don't share similar values. So that's why I put the other 2 first. Those are the things that are much more crucial to a good relationship. And then, it's a lot of times it's hard to say whether there's really good future prospects professionally with a person. If they're in your industry, that may be enough for you to conclude this is a relationship worth building. Okay? And see how it goes from there. And then from there, you just want to stay in touch. Okay? So my accountability coach, Bill, he has me calling people basically once every 3 months. Okay? And I have a tracking sheet. If you'd like a copy of the tracking sheet, again, contact me through my website, through the show's website, thewaytowowshow.com, and I will be happy to give you the sheet that I use for tracking. It's super convenient. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, and it makes it really easy to do. This is the easiest, most comfortable way to network, and I find it to be the most enjoyable way because I'm talking to and interacting with people that I like, I respect, I share values with them, and one of the values I share is we're both looking to build our professional lives through providing value to other people, either through clients or through the company that we're working for. And I bet you wow. So, you know what? I'm running out of time here. Your resume, some companies will still ask for them. And if you want to get into the details of resume making, you can ask me for this set of slides, and you'll see I've broken it down here pretty succinctly. And everything I said about your LinkedIn profile goes for your resume. Okay, and here's just again how you want to organize your experience. So you can look at that real quickly. Okay, and here's your 3 parts: benefits, unique, ask, da, 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 da. Oh, I'm sorry, this is an elevator pitch. Okay, unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about an elevator pitch. Maybe I can do that another time. So what I'm hoping is, as a result of this talk, you will take some action. You'll assess your skills, you'll identify your interest, you'll work on your LinkedIn profile and network, or maybe you'll draft your resume. If you want to develop your elevator pitch, let me know, and maybe we can do a short little one-on-one session, or again, maybe I'll do one in a later session here. Here's where to find me. And actually, I think the Facebook link may be outdated. I think it's now facebook.com/thewaytowowshow. Show. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, you can get me at coaching@badmouth.com. You can get me on Twitter. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can also look for the show, The Way to Wow Show, on all these social media as well. So we're actually just a minute over time. I think that's it. Here's all the legal stuff. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna try and close this. I guess I don't know where my thing went. Oh, there we go. Okay, and we're gonna stop sharing. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. And if you're watching this in a recording, thank you very much for watching the recording. I appreciate it very much. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you think you would be a good guest on The Way to Wow, People Making Money, you have a remarkable way of making a living that you really enjoy, I'd love to talk to you and see if you'd be a good guest. So please let me know. And let's see, 5 o'clock this afternoon on, oh my gosh, let me see if I can get the name of the radio station. I wanted to mention this real quickly. Yeah, on 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time on station KGNW 820 AM in Seattle, I'm going to be talking to Tim Gaidos about this whole sort of brouhaha with Whoopi Goldberg. I think, frankly, it's quite unfortunate. If you'd like to hear my perspective on it, you can tune in then. I'll also be talking on a couple of other radio shows tomorrow morning on the East Coast, sharing my thoughts on that. Some of you who know me can probably guess some of the things I'm going to say. But in any event, if you'd like to tune in, please do. If you don't get a chance to, hopefully I'll be able to post some recordings of that later. So I just want to wrap up by saying again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something useful out of it. And I'm working to make this my custom again. And so I just want to remind you that this is the Way to Wow show. And sorry, one other thing I want to mention. On March 3rd, my colleague Leah Siegel will be launching her show. It's called The Way to Wow, Securing Your Financial Foundation. And Leah is going to be talking with guests and talking about how to build wealth, how to build financial security. Her show will be airing each week at 1 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. I'm sorry, not 1 a.m. Whoa, no. 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Oh my gosh. 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. Okay, so that's Leah Siegel, and it's The Way to Wow, Securing Your Financial Foundation. Again, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I invite you to tune in starting March 3rd. Her show launches March 3rd, so in about a month. Okay, thank you all very much for watching. And as I explained a couple of weeks ago, my dear friend Marie, you are still my belle, darling. Thanks.